Uh, so let's get started, guys. On habits. Let's first thing on habits before we jump into the study. So around 15 years back, one of my mentors, my leaders, Rajiv Bandhanui is his name, pointed me to a small and very effective book, The Common Denominator of Success, by Albert Gray. Mr. Gray was a life insurance salesman who was one of the first to focus on habits and purpose as the key route to success. I still remember going through his book, and he first spoke of a common denominator of success some 75 years back. And the message which he communicates down here to me resonates till today. Anytime I'm kind of in a problem, I'm stuck somewhere, or I'm coaching someone, I do tell them, guys, this is what you should be looking into. So, as per Mr. Gray, the common denominator of success lies in the fact that he or she formed the habit of doing things that failures don't like to do it. So, how true this is? A very small statement, but I think it really resonates down with every one of us. Um, this is that book, still remains with me. In case you guys can look into this book, you can order this book on Amazon. It's only a 40-page book. You can read in leisure one of the Sunday afternoons. Not will take more than 30 minutes, or in case you're traveling somewhere. But this book has remained my best friend ever since, uh, from that time frame itself. So I think, to me, this is what the common denominator of success is. Before we jump into those 7 habits and what is our learning for there. So in the next 30 minutes, as Jens rightly highlighted, we are going to share the study which we did with Salimpa, one of the leading global organizations, along with whom we did a survey. Spoke to more than 150 leaders globally to understand what good looks like. And towards end, I would also spend some time to then drive change and adopt these great habits. So I think I'll be definitely spending some time at that point in time over there.
Rishi, I just
So
shared a abstract of the book in the chat room. So if people want to have a quick view of that, you can just download it from the chat room. Sorry for interrupting.
perfect. Thank you. Thanks for that, Jens. So guys, yes, this abstract is there. This gives you the complete summary of that. So you should definitely read it from here on. And I would definitely request, in case you can order the book, that will be another great stuff itself, because it also speaks about sense of purpose in detail, which is very close to me. My personal sense of purpose and my team members' sense of purpose is equally close to me. But thanks, Jens, really appreciate that. Perfect. So habit number 1, communicating value, guys. To me, this is where I think I would have seen most of the sales folks, I'll not say faltering, but one of the areas where every one of us can raise the bar and take it to the next level. I think where the challenge sometimes comes into play is when we're not in a position to really understand what the customers or our prospects' perception of value is. The moment we are not doing that, it becomes difficult for us to position our services in line with the expectation of our client's expectation of value, which is there. So I think by hands down, this is the number one habit which we need to ensure that we inculcate it. Top performers know how to effectively communicate value throughout the complete sales process. They don't stop at one point and stuff itself. While the average salesperson sometimes confuse this with communicating a value proposition, but to me, there are clear differences around it. Communicating value is the art of quantifying the high-level proposition for each prospect customer, drilling down from the very generic promise and tying it to the buyer's unique challenges and priorities. Even companies with good sales processes get pigeonholed as just nice to have product and services because the representatives, sales reps were not in a position to communicate value that was meaningful and purposeful for their clients to make a buying decision. And top performers recognize that they must have a conversation which is deeply rooted in metrics, objectives, and goals that will help them clarify and identify their value proposition, what difference it creates for the buyers. And then they are in a position to connect the dots together. One of the examples I just want to share with you of one of my best performers way back in during the Gartner time frame. He was really good connecting the dots together, really understanding what his client's perception of value is. And I still remember one of his meeting with one of the leading CIO of one of the manufacturing organizations in India. And in the very first meeting, he did realize that the CIO wants to make a change. He's looking for an option out, moving on from the organization. And there he was in a position to position Gartner in a sense that will elevate that CIO's position in the industry. It will position him as a thought leader. It will give an opportunity for him to connect with his peers in various networking events. And I still remember he closing the deal in 3 weeks duration, bang on. One of the month ends, I still remember it was either 30th April or 1st or 31st of May. When he closed this deal 11:30 at night outside Wankhede Stadium after the cricket match, wherein the client just signed on the dotted lines. A huge check came us, and without realizing that you have to work so hard towards that. So the secret sauce was connecting with the value perception of the client, what he was looking forward for from the services. So guys, that's habit number one. Moving on, habit number two, very close to me, asking questions and listening. Sales leaders with whom I have been in touch do report that the best salespeople have an insatiable curiosity and never stop asking questions. But for the average salesperson, questions are just means to an end, a way to get to the pitch. Top performers recognize the importance of asking relevant, deliberate, purposeful, and I'll say very purposeful and targeted questions throughout the complete sales conversation. They just don't stop at one point or the other. Throughout the complete sales process, they are trying to dig deeper and deeper. They go beyond superficial questions to identify and validate what customers' needs and challenges are. And one of the things which I always look into when I'm hiring someone, people who are armed with a good amount of research, not about the organization, but about me as an individual, who have their own set of questions and they really ask those pointed and targeted questions to me. And I can then connect the dots together that these would be the people who would be in a better position when they are put in front of the clients, that you don't have to coach them. That is a trait which they carry with themselves. But again, I said, while this is a trait, you can always build upon them. So I think that is something which you guys just need to look in for. On the other hand, top performers also possess another critical skill, which is active listening. After asking questions, they engage with the verbal and non-verbal cues to really qualify and confirm what they have heard is correct or not, while body language and other physical manifestations, facial expressions, seating position, etc., can easily be observed during an in-person meeting. This becomes all the more difficult during a virtual environment. So I think all the more important that we are putting so much focus, on this important attribute which is there. While active listening, guys, is not a skill, it's a trait, but I think we can always prep our folks that they are working on this, they're practicing this. You get into role plays, you just observe them when you have your review and plans, how they are reacting. And then that's an opportunity for you to coach them and take them to the next position. You also need to ensure that you prep your folks when they are into meeting, they have the habit of taking notes. They're not distracting or getting distracted with multitasking or looking into mobile and stuff itself, because that is an opportunity when they have to listen and completely involved into the discussion. Okay. So asking questions and listening happens to be really important as a number two habit. Moving ahead, habit number three is practicing empathy. And I will be very candid with you guys that this is something which doesn't come natural to me. One of the feedbacks I got almost 15, 16 years back, that you need to ensure that you are working on this. And I consciously worked on this, a very important habit. Empathy to me, guys, is one of that most crucial attribute of a top performer, because it enables reps to truly understand their buyer's perspective. Top performers do understand more they can relate with the prospect, the deeper the relationship would be, and that's going to assist them during the complete sales cycle. I always keep on telling my sales reps that you have to put yourself in the shoes of your customer, and that's going to happen in case you're doing a good amount of research before getting into the meeting, their business, their industry, the competition they are facing, or even sometimes looking into the social blogs or social media where they have been fairly active, because then they would be in a better position to focus the conversation around the customer, his challenges, his mindset, and not about themselves. So I think this is very, very important, doing a proper preparation before getting into the meeting, because then you would be in a better position to connect the dots with the person sitting over there and really understand what's going into their mind. It's important to position yourself as a peer, equally important with your stakeholders, which are your prospects, because the client then would respect you as someone who understands their challenges, their needs, and would help you gain trust and build a long-term relationship with your clients. While top performers spend quality time with quality prospects, to me, the bottom performers may sometimes use empathy just as a crutch, which eventually would kill the sales in the longer run kind of a scenario for you. So, guys, while empathy to me is innate in people, it's a good trait, but I think certain components are skills, such as active listening, asking the right questions, doing the preparation before getting into the meetings. And I think this is something you should ensure that you are coaching you guys to be in. My question to all the managers on the call, in case there are there, that they must model the same empathetic behavior that they encourage their teams to practice. So guys, do ensure that you are leading with example. Okay, moving ahead as habit number 4, using a sales methodology can probably see some laughing faces and some grins on the faces. But yes, this is a very important proponent, guys, of a sales methodology, which you cannot ignore it now. As per one of the latest Gong studies I was going through, and I thought, let me also share that with you. When they went ahead and researched some of the leading global organizations and what differentiates market leading companies, it was that sales teams at market leading companies have consistent selling behavior from rep to rep. And that consistency requires a framework or methodology your team will actually use and managers to coach it. So many leaders I speak, guys, they all agree to have a consistent methodology across the organization to ensure that they are building a team of top performers. A methodology not only creates a common language, but skill set, tool set, and mindset around the salespeople. Just for example, all salespeople should be unified around the definition of what a qualified opportunity is or what a high quality activity look like. Without these definitions, I can tell you, we're going to create a huge amount of complexity in your complete ecosystem, and that's going to lead your salespeople, even the top performers, towards less productive places. And during the pandemic time, guys, when we are all working remotely, the management and onboarding really becomes that difficult. So all the more reasons to adopt to a structured sales methodology to ensure that you're driving the uniformity across the business. One of the examples which I always keep on giving around sales methodology, and probably I think it's my personal example, and some of the guys who have worked in the past, and I see some of the guys on this call who have worked with me in the past, and I think Jens would also connect with that. That Gartner followed this methodology to the core. It's not that you have to follow this methodology; you follow any methodology which is there. But the results were amazingly great for Gartner. 38 plus quarters of consistent double digit growth for a true global organization is something which is, I think, really tough to have these kind of results. And I think in India, we almost doubled this growth rate which is there. So more than 40 quarters when I was at the helm of affairs, we grew more than the double what the organization was growing. And hats off to really selling the framework which we adopted to the core. So I think, guys, opportunity for you to lead it from the front. Moving ahead, guys, is habit number 5, building high caliber pipeline. And I'm sure many of you would have heard this. There's no rocket science into this. This is something which is very close to me. I always use the paraphrase plan B for a plan B, which my leaders would know, and I think legends would also know that. Whenever you forecast an opportunity, I always keep on saying, guys, there has to be something, at least two backups standing for that. And I generally realize that whenever the forecast opportunity is there, that close the next month, something else, which is the best case scenario, closes for that very month. So really important, guys, that you are building a strong pipeline, and there is no need for you to then worry. But what I have realized that irrespective of their achievements, prospecting is often a sales rep's least favorite activity in the complete sales cycles. But when you take some of the top performers, you will realize that they do recognize the importance in being able to consistently add new opportunities to the pipeline. And when it comes to building a robust pipeline, top performers are most focused on discipline than intensity. To me, discipline is very important, guys, here, because they're rigorous about their prospecting and do what it takes to reach the right people with the right message at the right time. They maintain a disciplined prospecting cadence that is so built in their daily activities. And I share one of the examples again with you. One of my best performing teams, um, um, again in Gartner, they had for the complete team, the manager had said that every day 1.5 to 2 hours is blocked in the calendar wherein we are going to do prospecting. That was a business development team for me. Without fail, they used to prepare before the getting into the prospecting call. We call it now call blocks, part of our Vertex prospecting technique, and wherein they all used to work together, huddle together, and do consciously prospecting, reaching out to their prospects, calling them, sending emails and stuff. So it was a complete team huddle at that point in time. And guys, and the results were really astonishing for that team. For 4 consistent years, that team was the best performing team for me. And hats off to that particular leader who built upon that strong cadence with them. There's another way to look into building a high caliber pipeline. And guys, I was fortunate to work for one of the great leaders, Tom Kinslow, and many of you guys would be aware of Tom. He first introduced me, I'll say, he was the first to introduce me to give a different scenario about having a healthy pipeline. The first way to look into is building on a heavy pipe of a strong pipeline is you have a strong number of suspects getting into your pipeline, and you have a higher chances of converting. In case you have lower number of suspects getting into the pipe, you have lower chances of converting those suspects. So which means the conversion ratio of the business is going to be lower in case the number of suspects and prospects for you is low. So there's no rocket science behind it. But I think the second analogy stayed with me forever. Tom always said that if you have less suspects or prospects, you would always have limited options, and limited options would always lead to a higher degree of pressure. So I think a very important thing which he said. And the second thing which he said was very important, that in case you have more prospect and cases in your pipeline, you would have more options. And when you have more options, you can choose, then you have less options. To me, this is so true, guys, because the more options you have more choice. That would lead you to being more confident, not only internally in your organization, but externally also. And with being in better confidence, that would also lead you with a better mindset. So I think it is very important for you to ensure that you really and consciously work on this particular habit and putting a strong focus around this. During my review discussions, one thing which I'm very particular is to look into the health of the pipe, and so that we can really plug the gaps where they are there. Okay, moving on to the next, which is habit number 6, staying open to a coaching environment, or to me, staying open for feedback. And I think this is really, really important, guys. Top performers love to learn, are open to feedback when it comes to hiring them. Sales leaders should look for signs of learning mindset. Do they invest in their personal development outside of work? Do they believe there is always more to learn? Or are they willing and able to effectively self-evaluate their strengths and areas for development? When it comes to coaching, I definitely want sales managers have a few key mandates. First, they must role model the right behavior, which I always keep on saying, guys, lead with example. That's really, really important. Second, leaders must communicate consistently and clearly their expectations of the daily activities which they want their folks to inculcate. Because when managers send mixed signals, sales reps should can get confused and they don't work that efficiently. Um, and one of the examples on coaching which always come to my mind whenever I get into any interview process, I always ask one question from the candidates. Tell me two constructive feedbacks you got, whether you agreed or not, what you did after that, and try to do a further deep analysis to really get to understand what their mindset is. And I find many times in the interview process is sometimes guys comes with a very closed mindset. No, I never agree with that. I think he had a different opinion, but I had a different opinion about that in particular. But that puts me really into a spot that it would be difficult for me to have this person unlearn and learn the way we want to work into. So guys, always ensure that you inculcate this habit. Always look out for coaching opportunities. I would always recommend that go on your own and talk to your managers. Give me some feedback where I need to work and be better into. So very important habit, and I always look this into something else. And before jumping into the call, I was telling Jens that I'm working on a couple of areas, which was a feedback given to me 6 months back, and this is what my plan is. So I think very close to me. Ensure that you inculcate this good habit. Habit number 7, which is the last one, is dealing with adversity. Um, Guys, I think we all know, being in sales, I think we would have faced more rejections than winning those. But getting a sign on the dotted lines, Jens is smiling, and I can tell him that the number of rejections we face before getting an order sometimes runs into n number of times. So we really know about the science behind the adversity. But top performers do realize that success and failure are on the same side. They are not opposite. The highest achieving sales reps have a very short memory. Objection is a core part of being in sales, and those who can persevere through it are the most successful people. When top performers face adversity, they are resilient. They look for the lesson, while average performers often take rejection very personally. And I think that is when they struggle a lot. I think it should not be a salesperson goal to avoid failure. Those of you who are not experiencing enough failures, to me, the question is, are you talking to the right number of folks? Because you should be facing more objections than ticks in the boxes, which means you're not in the right place in that scenario. So, guys, really, really important. Uh, and I think again, I shared some of the examples which you, and I think that would give you some kind of background. To me, resilience is something to hire for. While hiring, I always used to ask again scenario-based questions to uncover how a candidate might deal with adversity. I always ask, what is the most difficult thing they faced in their career? How did they react? What did they do? What did they learn? What would they have done differently next time around? Some of these questions gives me the cues what the person on the other side of the table is and how he's going to face adversity when he's going to be on this side of the table. So I think very important question, guys, for us to look into. So good. I think we covered all the habits, right, Jens? We covered all the 7 habits, which is so crucial for every one of us to focus into. Now, guys, when you have the secret sauce in front of you, the bigger question comes to you is how to ensure that you are inculcating these good habits and change some of the bad habits, making these good habits as your crucial behavior so that you are putting yourself and laying a strong foundation for the success in the days to come. In the next few minutes, 5 to 6 minutes, I'm going to share a couple of examples with you from a couple of great leaders I have whom I have always looked up to and had a privilege to either work or listen to them. And one of these leaders is guys Richard Bandler. Richard is a pioneer of NLP, or the neuro linguistic programming, which we call it. Been fortunate to attend a couple of his workshops remotely on the internet and read a couple of his good books around changing habits. And one of the examples which I want to share with you is all around the smoking habit and quitting smoking. One of the habits which you guys know is not good to have. I don't smoke, so I can always say it's not a good habit. But people who smoke can always say that they always struggle to, they know that it's not a good habit, but it's difficult for them to overcome that craving for nicotine. So I think that is where the people struggle. And as per Richard, it's amazing when people have bad habits, they all seem to engage in what he refers to as the fudge factor or the phenomenal phenomenon. And that's what I tried to hint just before that. People say that it's difficult for them to overcome the habit of coming out of that craving for nicotine. That is where they are making a self-belief about it. And the phenomenal phenomena is touching upon that. There is where our mind finds a way of getting out of what we know we really ought to do. So I think that is where the problem is, that without adequate mental preparation, it's really hard to break these habits, guys. And the reason it's so hard, that when people try and don't succeed, they build up a series of disappointments and beliefs that they will never be able to succeed. And the first step in breaking habit has to go to be where we switch our beliefs and start believing that yes, we can do it. Richard did highlight in one of his interviews that when he get people to quit, he don't have them throw their cigarettes out. He have put their cigarettes in front of them. He have them light one, put in their ashtray, and ask them to stare at it, and then mentally make sure that they are able to go into the state of overcoming the desire. So as bad as the people feel it, as hard as it is to go through the withdrawal of the nicotine, for all those cravings that are there, they need to have control. They look at the cigarette and they struggle, but they still know they cannot act on those desires to pick up the cigarette and take a puff. So I think that's really important. And by actually doing this, they break the desire or the habit, and they actually manage to kind of move away from that point where they kind of defeated by their beliefs is now point where they're actually adopting that belief that yes, they can do it. So in brief, guys, breaking beliefs in the belief system is what is all about around bad habits, and changing those bad habits. The first step in breaking habit has to go where we switch our beliefs. So all about in our minds, you need to make it fairly clear. So that is what I would definitely recommend you folks with. Great stuff which is available about Richard on internet, and I would definitely recommend one of his great books, which I'm really fan of, which is Get the Life You Want. So do look out for that book. I don't have a copy, but I could have shared that with you, the research of that. But that is really one of the good books which is there. Another way is, guys, to look into habits and how to change it, which I always call as output performance versus the behavior or habit or the pyramid model. Again, being fortunate to work for a leader who introduced this model to me when I became manager. Her name is Mankiran. And that really changed my perspective. We're often too focused on the results, guys, which is right at the top of the pyramid, without really looking at the root causes and the habits that drive that behavior. Most companies probably we have worked and are working are focused on output, and we all would have seen that. And that's true as well as for us, the sales professionals. So nothing wrong into it. We are all focused on ensuring that we're driving the output. But I think where the challenge comes into play when the output gets into a downward spiral. And the first and the natural tendency for any company is to cut on processes, put more inspections, or lay down more processes around it. But I think where we miss the bus is we're not looking and focusing on the bottom of the pyramid, which is those habits and behaviors. Because in case you focus over there, they will ensure that the next step is skills and processes are going to change, which is automatically going to lead you into the into the positive outcome. So, guys, focus on developing the right behaviors through these 7 habits which we just shared with you, and I'm sure you're going to see some great results coming into play. Before we end, I also want to share one habit loop with you, because I definitely carry a belief, friends, that while we know what good looks like, but I think the where the difficulty comes into play is that we're not in a position to change ourselves. And this is the reason I'm spending probably another couple of minutes to inculcate and highlight what really good looks like and what should be the right steps for you to make a shift. And a very famous book, The Habit Loop, which I want all of you to go for it. Probably I have a copy of that. Let me pull that out for you. Yeah. So guys, this is that book, which is the a very famous book written by Charles Duhigg. Charles is a Pulitzer Prize winner, reporter, and the author of Smarter, Faster, Better, about the science of productivity and the power of habit. The habit loop is very practical in nature. And let me take a couple of minutes to just explain to you before we wind up. Let's take example of social media. We end spending too much time on social media, be it Facebook, Insta, or something else. The time which is non-productive. Now let's connect this with the habit loop. Q can be a particular time of the day, the environment you are really in, or anything else could be the cue for that. Something which creates a craving for us. The next thing is we open our mobile phone and when we start browsing, sometimes for us. This is a routine which is there, and the reward is you read and see a lot of funs and interesting stuff on people you know or you admire. How to change this habit, or I'll say the challenge is how to change the routine, and the next challenge is how to change the cue, which gets associated with that is a bigger question. So just need to identify what is the cue which is triggering that routine to set into, so that you can hold yourself. Another example which I always keep on giving guys is my personal example. Around 8 to 9 years back in GS, this is around 2012, 2013 timeframe, which was my second year of being manager. And I still remember those days in Gartner's. New responsibility coming your way. I used to travel a lot, almost 4 to 5 days living out of hotels. No stop on the working hours, stretching out yourself late for those client meetings and then preparing for those internal reviews. Less time for the family, less time for the health. And then I realized that I became unhealthy. I was touching 100 kgs. And I know that this is not good. This is not going to sustain me for a longer duration. I learned my lesson the hard way around, Jens. So what was required? I definitely want to get back into the shape. So I identified a routine that would lead me become more healthy, and I picked upon on running on running a few times per week. While you have been trying to do this for months, but I think there's always a reason not to do this. So solution was to make it a habit. So I picked on a routine which was running, and I experimented this with rewards, which is feeling good or refreshed afterwards. To me, reward was two-pronged, getting kudos from my family, my daughters, and my wife, definitely. And the second biggest reward for me was to jumping on the weighing machine every second day. And even looking on those few grams getting reduced, it was a big high moment that yes, I have achieved something in life. So I think that was a bigger reward for me. So I started losing a few grams for that. But I knew that in case I don't make it a habit, there has to be a cue. It's not going to sustain for a longer duration. So I looked out and I'm not a person that who can wake up early in the morning at around 5:30 with an alarm. So I had to look out for a cue, and the cue came into play of a fellow colleague who was a good runner. It was his habit. His name is Vishnu Nepak. Vishnu is a chief revenue officer now for VBox. And Vishnu wasn't big time running. And I requested Vishnu, who was heading government vertical for me at that point in time. And we used to stay in vicinity. That is it okay that I run with you every day in the morning? And he said, why not? And I think that is where that cue became to me. And I then started running. And the ultimate reward now to me is that I ran 7 half marathons. I'm a consistent running in the Airtel half marathon, which is every year in October, just before pandemic. So post pandemic, it's always that I haven't ran any marathon, but I've ran seven half marathons. And now the bigger thing is I have started measuring the time. The first time I ran marathon, it was 2 hours 30 minutes. Now it's around a little less than 2 hours, 1 hour 59 minutes to be precise. And I definitely want to improve it the next time around. So, guys, the question to you is whenever you want to make a behavior change, ask simply three questions from you. First, how can it make it obvious? Second, how can I make it attractive for me, which is a reward? And third, how can I make it easy for me, which is a cue for you? So work on this, and I'm telling you, you will be taking the performance or your habits to the next level. So, guys, we're on time. Hopefully, on time. Yeah. So to summarize, the 7 habits of top sales performers is written here: communicate value, asking questions and listening, empathy, sales methodology, robust pipeline, open to coaching, deal with adversity, and then creating strong adoption on those habits, either in the form of cue, routine, reward, which I just shared, or Richard Bandler's example, which I shared with you. So where you can break those self-beliefs which is there. Before we wind up here, and then I hand it over to Jens for question answers, I definitely request one thing from each one of you. When you move out of this call, spend another 5 or 10 minutes, do a self-evaluation of yourself against all these 7 habits, and what would you rate yourself. And that's going to throw back to you which are the areas you need to really work into it. Prepare a plan, share that with your manager, and my request would be and try to inculcate some of these habits and bring a change in yourself. And the biggest gratification to me would be in case you're in a position to make even a small change, and I'm in a position to assist you in that. I think that is going to be the biggest gratification to me. With that,